Yo, what's up, everybody? Hope you had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. For the last few days, I've been doing extensive reading about the protests that happened in 2021 in middle schools, high schools, and universities throughout America, and in a few instances in Canada as well. These protests are usually in response of racism, discrimination, and prejudice against students and sometimes faculty, staff. The thing that all these protests have in common is that all the students who are protesting are saying that administration and the people who are in positions to take disciplinary action against the students and the staff who are committing racist acts and using racist, hateful language is that not enough is being done to thwart the racism, the sexism, discrimination, and the prejudice that goes on within the schools, and that also goes on social media within the social dynamics of the school. So there have been a lot of situations where a student attending a school would upload a video on social media that would be displaying very offensive, racist, hateful, derogatory, degrading language. And students who would see it, they would share it with other students and it would get passed around throughout the school, and people would just see it and they would get uncomfortable. And a lot of the students who would see it, they would rally with one another and they would form protest, and that's when a lot of the walkouts would happen. There were also a few instances when there would be racist, hateful graffiti that would be displayed on the property of the schools, and in some cases on the dorm rooms of students, meant for the graffiti to offend. In one case, in a few cases, actually in two cases, there were school administrators who felt like they were being discriminated against um, from students. They felt like they felt like they were getting discriminated against from students. They felt like they were being discriminated against by students and their fellow faculty members. So students would protest that too. And the thing is that for a very long time, it has been acceptable for people who are not black to say the N word with an A at the end. And the thing is that people want to make it seem like it's okay. And I understand that it is just a word, but people get very offended by words. And I actually grew up in, I didn't grow up, I went to a majority white middle school and high school in a predominantly white city. The education was amazing, the extracurricular activities were amazing, but the social dynamics and the social acceptance was terrible. When I went to school throughout my whole life, I never felt as separated from the group, and I never felt as not accepted until I started going to the majority white school in the predominantly white city, where it was acceptable for white people to say the N word with an A at the end. And the thing about that is, you're gonna have black people of every skin tone, of every hood level, and every education level who have different levels of acceptances for who they feel like should use the N word and who they feel like should be able to call them that. There are black people of every skin tone, of every education level and every hood level who feel like nobody should use it and they don't want anybody calling them that. Just like there are black people of every skin tone, every hood level, and every education level that feel like only black people should be able to say it and black people should only be able to call black people that. And then you have the black people who are every skin tone, every hood level, and every education level who feel like anybody should be able to use it and they don't mind who calls them it. And that is the separation when it comes to people and their acceptances of who should use the N word and who should be able to call them that. The thing with the N word is that when white people started calling black people that and they made that word up for black people, they did not view black people as equals. And I don't even think that they viewed black people as humans. They didn't even view black people as humans. If you know the history of slavery and you are educated in the history of slavery and you read up on it and you get enough history about it and you learn enough about it, you wouldn't think that white people seen black people as humans because how they treated them and the shit that they put them through is utterly abhorrent and just completely cruel and evil. So when I learned about enough about slavery and what my ancestors and the fellow ancestors of my fellow black people in America went through, I couldn't even wrap my head around that white people viewed black people as humans because it felt like to me black people were being treated worse than animals and that there's some bullshit out there that says black people were looked at as 3/5 of humans, and that's complete bullshit. White people didn't even look at black people as humans. They looked at them as animals. They looked at them as beneath their animals. They treated them worse. They treated them worse than their animals. So when white people came up with the N word for black people, it was strictly from a place of evil, hatred. It was strictly from a place of evil, hateful, degrading intent. The N word wasn't meant for solidarity. It wasn't meant for, you know, to uplift anybody. It was meant solely to to it was solely meant to degrade people, put them in their place, and let them know how low they were. Because there is no way that black people were seen as humans by the way that they were treated and how white people treated them. So if you are somebody or you know somebody who is raised and who grew up around black people who comfortably use that, because every black person of every skin tone, of every hood level, of every educational level has their own comfortability with that word as well, just with their own level of acceptance of use from certain individuals and certain groups. So for if somebody did grow up around black people who are comfortable using that word and they feel like they're comfortable using that word around those certain black people, it's not in that person's it's not in that person's right to take that comfortability that they have with the black people who they're comfortable using that word with and try to apply that to every other black person because you don't know if that black person grew up using that word. You don't know if that would be only a few times that they would be introduced to the word that you use it. So it's not for black people to try to accept something that was made for evil, hateful intent towards them and to degrade their whole people. So if you are somebody who grew up around black people who use that, and you feel comfortable using it around Black people, and you feel comfortable calling Black people that, you should stick to using that around the Black people who you're comfortable with, and you should stick with calling Black people that who you're comfortable with, because Black people don't have to be comfortable with anything that was meant to degrade and destroy them. And Black people who would only feel comfortable for Black people using it, one of the reasons I'm guessing would be is that if we were still slaves, or if we were born in slave times, everybody else who is not Black would be calling Black people that with hateful, evil intent. And all the Black people who would be being called the N-word, they would be being called the N-word together, all together as Black people. So that is why Black people would only feel comfortable being called it by a Black person. Because if we were back in slave days, or if slavery was still around, or if we were born back in slave days, there's no way that anybody is going to be sticking up for Black people and being, oh, don't call them that. Because back then, nobody was sticking up for Black people, saying don't call them that. Of course, you have your exceptions, but the vast majority of people, they were calling Black people that. When Black people first started using the N-word for each other as a term of endearment and companionship, it came out different than what white people were saying, because when Black people first started using the N-word amongst each other as a term of endearment and to express their camaraderie, it came out different when Black people said it versus when white people said it, because inherently Black people talk differently. So what people are doing nowadays is that they're taking the way that Black people talk and they're saying it how Black people say it to make it more acceptable for themselves to say it. And me personally, I think that's just silly, because just like I said before, if we were still in slave times, or somebody even nowadays wants to use that word against any Black person and they're not Black, they could do that. If a Black person uses that word against another Black person, it's kind of stupid and silly. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you could be called that just like me. You sound dumb as fuck. So it's not like a Black person is going to call another Black person that and it's going to have the same hard-hitting, hateful, degrading effect as if anybody else would say that to a Black person. Those are my thoughts on the N-word. I don't even, that's, those are my thoughts on the N-word. Tell me what you think, and tell me what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like it, let me know. Hope you enjoy the ride. Catch you on the flip side.